you're really letting us down. Like, shame. Like, I can't support Labour now, and I've been supporting Labour for years. I'm not the only one.
Very fractured relations in some areas between the Labour Party and voters who previously considered themselves loyal.
My name is Sophie Stowers and I'm a research associate at UK and Changing Europe.
My name is James Canagazorian and I'm the Chief Research Officer at Focaldata.
My name is Zain Mohyuddin and I'm a researcher at UK and Changing Europe.
I'm Arne Menon, I'm Director of UK and Changing Europe. I want to talk to you today about a new report we've got out, and it's a report on the social and political attitudes of Britain's ethnic minority communities, to try and figure out what these people think, what their social and political values are, and, crucially, what that might mean for our politics. We did it!
When we look at the general election of July, obviously it was an incredibly successful election for Labour. I think one of the big surprises was just how much of the British Muslim vote they lost. In our data, with Focaldata, it looks like they were down around 17% among that group of voters from 2019 and 2024. And really, actually, that shouldn't be that surprising in a lot of ways, because when we look at their values, particularly their social values, they're pretty socially conservative, a lot of them. So it makes sense that some of that movement would have been underway way before the 2024 election anyway. But obviously that was then compounded by Gaza and the way that the party responded to that.
The Labour Party were us. They were our people. Not anymore. Especially for a lot of, people of colour. And we feel really hurt and betrayed.
But actually on the right, there's another story, which is that the safest Conservative seat in the country is Harrow West, which is a majority Hindu seat. And the Conservatives only gained one seat at the last election, and that was Leicester East, which is also one of the highest Hindu populations. So again, this story was hidden somewhat by the very low Conservative vote share, but we expect these patterns to play out and diverge even more over time.
There are loads of surveys, but actually historically it's really hard to survey these minority voters because generally people don't get big enough samples. This time, working with Focaldata, we've got a big enough sample so we can come to some real conclusions about what these communities think, and my God, what they think is so interesting.
So we had a sample of 4,000 ethnic minorities. To put that into context, the British election study, their cross-sectional survey typically has around 200 to 300 ethnic minorities, right? So we just had the sort of power to look at how these interesting factors interact, which allows us to see variations not just between ethnic minorities and white populations, but within ethnic groups, and also how education, income, and these different factors interact with ethnicity.
The thing about this study is it rhymes a lot with the Red Wall. Again, we see amongst certain ethnic minority communities that their values, beliefs, social and economic might sit one way, but their voting behaviours might sit another. Do non-white people behave in a way that is structurally different to the rest of the population? Well, we found on a number of dimensions not, and we also found that within the group of non-white people, they diverge so much in what they thought about the world. In many ways, it's not necessarily a useful or helpful group to think of as one group. Nonetheless, we did find a number of structural differences between non-white Britons and white Britons. In a way, the dynamics amongst ethnic minorities is actually very reflective of how politics used to be in this country in the 1970s and 80s. And that's why we end up in Britain with very strange coalitions of white and non-white voters. They behave differently.
I think it's really going to require a reset for, how we approach this topic, how parties think about this topic. For Labour, for example, they can no longer guarantee they're going to win this block of 7% of the population's vote, because we see it's splintering in all different directions.
We used to think about ethnic minorities as a blob, and we used to assume that they tended towards the left. They'll tend to vote Labour for a variety of reasons. Now, however, when it comes to both political and social attitudes, there is such variation among groups. I mean, the one big key takeaway is you can't just say ethnic minorities, because different communities think and behave in really different ways.